Alright, so this deck right here is a combat star deck that uses level 5 or higher Pendulum monsters as kind of the fuel in order to bring out these fusion monsters. Specifically with Dragon Horn Hunter because of his passive ability to increase the attack of normal monsters, which allows you to use Unity Star's effect from the graveyard. Alright, so final thoughts on this deck. I recorded a final thoughts on this previously, but I ended up rambling on about stupid shit, and it was 12 minutes long, and I was like, I can't have the final thoughts be longer than the actual video. That's ridiculous, so I'm just recording this again. Anyways, this deck right here, the reason I went with Ignite's level 5 or higher normal Pendulum monsters is because someone sent me a message through my Facebook page saying I should do this for the new like Combat Star, Conqueror Star fusion monsters. And I was like, that sounds like a neat idea. But his suggestion was to like throw in a whole bunch of, you know, level 5 or higher normal monsters like Judge Man and stuff, because, you know, that would be fun. And I was like, I mean, I like the idea of the Pendulum monster mechanic, but not really the normal monsters, because here's the thing with Pendulum monsters. Pendulum decks don't really fit well in with other decks, but other archetypes fit in well with Pendulum decks. So it's a lot easier to throw in an archetype into a Pendulum deck than it is to throw Pendulum monsters into another deck, because the Pendulum engine is just so big. It takes up so much room in the deck that you can't realistically, you know, just splash it into something. It has to be the other way around. You have to splash in an archetype into a Pendulum deck. So I couldn't really run the normal monsters and, you know, the mechanic of Unity Star. So Unity Star is just one of like 3 of the cards that were released to, you know, help fulfill the conditions of Combat and Conquer Star. The other 2 are kind of bad, so I don't play them at all. And Unity Star is really good. He's basically the 1-card fusion for this deck. If he's special summoned, you get a fusion summon. But because his effect is conditional, it almost always locked up my extra deck zone, because I wasn't able to, you know, special summon out and then go into a link summon and then go into a fusion summon. No, I had to fusion summon as soon as I pendulum summoned him out, which sucked because I had, you know, a link engine, so I wouldn't have to lock up my zone, but it never actually turned out that way. Luckily, the Pendulum monsters, the fusion monsters are really good. The first version of it allows you to search out another Unity Star from your deck or one of the Pendulums, and the upgraded version is just a really good boss monster. His effect, during the battle phase, change all your opponent's monsters' attack to 0 permanently. Also, he increases the attack of your monsters when they battle. Also, he floats into his downgraded fusion version on death, and it counts as a fusion summon, so you get a search. Plus, he himself is powerful, so he just has like all of the good mechanics of a good boss monster, and he's not that hard to bring out. All you need is basically the fusion monster and another level 5 or higher warrior monster. Ugh, I'm trying to talk too fast, I'm messing up my words. Which can be fulfilled with Unity Star again, since if you control a monster, a level 5 or higher warrior type monster who has a different attack from his original, you can special summon from the graveyard and then fusion again. So he basically can just bring himself back out. Oops, my throat's a little dry. He can bring himself back out to fusion with this guy to go into the boss monster. Thanks to Dragonhorn Hunter. He's like the cornerstone of this deck. He's the only non-Ignite Pendulum monster I run because his passive Pendulum effect is to increase the attack of all normal monsters by 200 attack. So if you have him in the Pendulum scale and like one of your Ignite monsters out, you can use Unity Star's effect during your opponent's turn. Or, if that's not the case, you can just use Conqueror Star's other effect, which kind of sucks. But he does have an effect where you can discard cards to increase his attack by 200 for each card discard, which is so bad. That effect is terrible. 200 attack for a discard, such a crappy trade-off. But if you don't have Dragonhorn Hunter out, it is kind of worth it, because it allows you to bring out Unity Stars during your opponent's turn to go into Combat Star. So I did use that effect a couple of times because I didn't have that set up. Also, I ran the Phantasm City engine because I was using a whole bunch of neural monsters, and the engine is just really good, but I rarely ever drew into it, which really annoyed me. I think it shows up a lot in the video, but that's only because when I did draw into it, I actually won a game, because it's just that good, and usually if I didn't draw into it, I just didn't have the advantage to win, because his deck just... The biggest problem was I just didn't have any advantage. If I lost my board, I basically lost the game. There was no comeback. Phantasm City allowed me to actually come back, or push for game. That was kind of the reason behind Supply Squad 2, but I never drew into that either. And I went on like a 5-minute rant in my last version of this after thing, just talking about how I never drew into both of these. And the one time I threw in triple Terraform just so I could see Phantasm City, I drew all 3 Phantasm Cities in my opening hand. And I was like, what the hell? Then I drew into a Terraform like on my next draw, and I was like, this is garbage. What? Ugh. This is why I don't make these videos as much anymore, because it stresses me out when shit like this happens. Also, Pendulum Halt was in here to also solve the problem of having really poor advantage, because Master Rule 4 kind of destroyed Ignites, since their whole thing was about sending cards to the extra deck to be special summoned through Pendulum Summoning, and now you can only do 1, or, to link monster zones, which I thought was a very fair nerf. Pendulum Summoning in its old version was really strong, and this kind of, brings it back into line. It's probably how it should have been in the first place. So you just have a whole bunch of Ignites in the extra deck now, and Pendulum Halt allows you to draw 2 cards if you have 3 or more monsters in your extra deck that have different names that are face up, which is a condition that can be filled very easily with Ignites. But with the drawback of you basically have a draw and lockbird effect for the rest of the turn, which is a fair trade-off. Just use it at the end of your combos. Also, since this deck rarely ever uses its normal summon, like not at all, I threw in Cosmic Compass to test it out, because this is a new card I'm probably going to be using in engines from now on that don't really use their normal summon, which is very rare. There are other engines I could use that use up your normal summon as well, but they require other cards in the deck, and this deck is already pretty tight with the Ignite and Phantasm City engine. So I was testing out Cosmic Compass, and it tested very well, and I'll probably be using it again in the future.